Hey guys, welcome back to another Modern Warfare 2 Warzone 2 video. Today's video is going to be talking about skill-based matchmaking in Modern Warfare 2, and of course subsequently Warzone 2, and probably also for future Call of Duty games as well, because skill-based matchmaking is one of those topics and one of those items that is shared between games. It's more so done at the Activision level than necessarily at the developer level. All the netcode, the matchmaking, all that stuff isn't necessarily the individual developers like Infinity Ward and Treyarch. That's more Demonware and Activision. So here we go. This is coming from Ralph. Ralph posted an article. He says plans to reshape skill-based matchmaking for Modern Warfare 2 exclusive. And so he posted this article, and here we go. We're just going to kind of read through it and discuss it. So he says skill-based matchmaking has become a hotbed of discussion over the last few years. It continues to be a source of concern amongst fans of the franchise. Activision has since sought an improvement to the skill-based matchmaking framework, assigning a subsidiary studio, Demonware, with curating and refining the system. An associate close to the Call of Duty describes skill-based matchmaking as complicated but pragmatic. We're always looking for ways on improving every facet that contributes to a product's success. That's the initiative. Skill-based matchmaking is one of those things, and it's really a matter of trial and error. He says skill-based matchmaking plays an important role in sustaining and thriving player base, and with Vanguard failing to meet expectations, Activision has had the chance with wiping the slate clean and reviewing the system in place. A collective R&D, or research and development, effort from several studios contributing towards creating a liberal yet sensible system. A system that accommodates all brackets of skill, high and low. An associate briefly mentioned that the new framework would become less debilitating for the better margins of players instead of penalizing them, whilst allowing for a protected bracket to coexist for lower skilled players. Matchmaking Bot Pools. It says, with the breakdown of the skill-based matchmaking system, there are alleged plans to incorporate bot pools, so PvPvE, for the new DMZ mode in Warzone 2, on the condition that a player's statistics are eligible to enter these lobbies. With the overhaul in AI, they'll be able to track a player's level of skill throughout a match, leveling and countering smurfs, or outright removing the player from the matches. We'll talk about that in a second. With Call of Duty newly integrating bot pools, an associate asserted that this particular system would cater to a specific subsection of players in mind, the handicapped. One of the many accessibility options to be introduced, ensuring that as many fans as possible have a chance of experiencing something that may have previously been unplayable to them. Disbanding Lobbies. Disbanding Lobbies are supposedly here to stay. An associate emphasized its apparent importance in structuring skill-based matchmaking as a foundation, plainly stating, if it were to be removed, it would collapse. An associate then went on to mention that skill-based matchmaking has only become a topic of discussion internally on the back end of Modern Warfare 2019, where a plan of action then followed soon after. Technically, the teams weren't prepared for Modern Warfare 2019's success. The system utilized for that game was placed on full display. It was outdated. It's been put through the ringer with recent titles, but it's constantly in development and maintenance. Okay, so that's his article. So basically what he's saying here, the skill-based matchmaking is supposed to change and with this new game, and there's a couple of things we can take away from it. So first up is that they're talking about Vanguard and how Vanguard, with it failing to meet expectations, it didn't sell as well as even Cold War, and the player base has been dwindling for that game. That something kind of has to change, and so of course they're changing it up in a number of different ways. One, we're getting Modern Warfare 2 this year, which is a sequel to Modern Warfare 2019, which also should basically, that in and of itself should ensure that the game sells a lot of copies, probably way more than Vanguard, just because of the success Modern Warfare 2019 had. Also, because it's a modern game, a lot of people don't like the World War II setting, and so having it go back to a modern setting is also good. The fact that it's also going to be kind of not necessarily bundled, but it's going to be coming out around the same time with Warzone 2 is also going to encourage a lot of people to buy the game and play it as well. But they're apparently experimenting here with skill-based matchmaking and stuff, and they're going to be changing how it works here, where, supposedly with this new system, that the new skill-based matchmaking would, quote-unquote, become less debilitating for the better margins of players. So instead of penalizing them, instead of being like, hey, you're a good player, you are just going to get absolutely rocked, and you're going to be put into all these lobbies with all these sweats. Instead of penalizing players for being good at the game, and trying to coddle all the new players, instead they're trying to come up with a better system for that, where in previous games, the older Call of Duty games, there was skill-based matchmaking. We had a developer from Treyarch say this a year or two ago. He said, in response to somebody's like, oh, yeah, Black Ops 2 had no skill-based matchmaking. That was one of the best games. And one of the developers at Treyarch was like, dude, I worked on the skill-based matchmaking for Black Ops 2. There is skill-based matchmaking. So every game has some degree of skill-based matchmaking, but the real concern, though, is how much of a degree is it? And it is very apparent that in the likes of Modern Warfare 2019, that it was ramped up quite a bit. So we've had a few major skill-based matchmaking events within the entire franchise. The first one was really with Advanced Warfare. Advanced Warfare was one of the first times that the community very much became aware of skill-based matchmaking. In that game, I feel it was like the first time Activision really pushed it to a new level. Games before that, Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3, they all had some degree of it, but it was relatively like dumbed down, and it didn't really mean a whole lot in those games. Advanced Warfare took it to a whole new level, where in that game, a lot of players, including myself, we realized to which degree there was skill-based matchmaking. It became very apparent because in that game, if you are an above-average player, you would get matched with all these potatoes on your team, and then the enemy team would be so-so, and you'd basically be forced to carry a bunch of potatoes on your team because you were above average. And that's the way it stayed for a number of years. Advanced Warfare had skill-based matchmaking in it, and that's also really where you started to see a lot of the reverse boosting came from. Advanced Warfare really started that. I mean, there was reverse boosting in, Black Ops 2 and Modern Warfare 3 and stuff, but it wasn't as apparent as it was in Advanced Warfare. Advanced Warfare is really where the huge YouTube and Twitch scene took off, with streamers and YouTubers reverse boosting in order to get DNA bombs in that game every single game, because it was relatively easy in that game. You just shoot yourself with a launcher 200 times in a match, and then the very next game you get into, you're playing against all these Smurfs, and you can drop a DNA bomb easy. And that's how all these YouTubers got DNA bombs back in the day. But it's pretty much that. People are even selling accounts with like 0.0001 KD. It has like 1 kill for every like 40,000 deaths on the account. People are selling these accounts. So basically they're just giant Smurf accounts that you could get into, and you could get high streaks and gameplays and stuff with, basically. And that's the way it was for a number of years. We had Black Ops 3 was that same way, even World War II was the same way, Infinite Warfare, Modern Warfare Remastered, they were all basically the same way as Advanced Warfare. And even Black Ops 4 to an extent was the same exact way. Then we got into Modern Warfare 2019, and that was our second time skill-based matchmaking was really changed in the franchise, and that is really where it kind of took off again. In Modern Warfare 2019 was huge because it really stepped up to a whole new level. Modern Warfare 2019 completely eliminated lobbies, so like it disbanded lobbies in between games, so there was no longer an ability for you to like match with random players, and you play against each other, and there's competitive aspect there, and it's like, oh man, they beat us. Hey, it's okay, now we're going to play against them again, and we'll beat them this time. There's none of that. None of that anymore. There's no more trash talking because, after, you play one match with people, boom, lobbies get disbanded, and you match up against new people. There is no way about it, no other way about it. In Modern Warfare 2019, it is permanent. There's always disbanding lobbies. You could never stay in the same lobby with any randoms. You had to, either invite them to your party or hope that somehow you randomly get matched up against them again. But, that was a big problem, and as they even said in this article, if that went away, if they did not have disbanding lobbies, then this skill-based matchmaking system, it would not work. Because, even in games where, we had disbanding lobbies, like even in Modern Warfare 2019, and even in Black Ops Cold War, and even previous games and stuff too, it's like, people, you would have YouTubers that would have, like, high KDs. They're like, oh, see, I don't reverse boost because I have a high KD on this account. And the reason they were able to get around that is because they had a Smurf account that they would, have search for a lobby, they'd get into a lobby, and then they'd join that account, join that lobby with their new account, and they'd be, bam, they didn't search for that lobby, they just joined into it. So they get to play against all these bot potato players, and they get a smash in it. So that's how all these YouTubers people got around having low stats, it's just by joining off of a Smurf account. Well, they pretty much kind of got rid of that. That's kind of a thing of the past now. But, now we're doing stuff with, like, VPNs and all this other stuff, too. It's kind of a constant battle between the community and streaming and YouTubers and stuff and, like, the developers, Demonware and Activision, where they don't want, experienced high-skill players getting into these noob lobbies and absolutely destroying these players. And that is basically the whole conflict here, is Activision is trying to protect new players and low-skilled players. It's a valid concern. You can't really disagree with that. Everybody should be given a fair chance at playing the game. Everybody paid, the same amount of money or whatever to play the game. And so everybody should be able to give a chance to play the game and have fun with it, because after all, video games are supposed to just be entertainment. It shouldn't just be for high skill players to just absolutely dominate and everybody else should just have a miserable time. It's not fair to everybody. Then again, it's like, should it be fair to everybody? Well, that's another question. But at the same time, it kind of got to the extent with Modern Warfare 2019 where it started to coddle the new players so much that it was penalizing and punishing all the better players, or all the better players are getting these super frustrating lobbies, and it's a whole thing. So that's personally my beef. I didn't play a whole lot of Modern Warfare multiplayer because of that, because of the skill-based matchmaking system in that game. But they say here that there will be new changes to skill-based matchmaking where it will no longer penalize better players, but they'll also have a protected bracket for lower skill players. And because of that lower skill bracket for the lower skill players, they're going to be able to really take a look at players' stats and prevent higher skill players from getting into these lobbies, like as much as they absolutely can. And they even said, even outright just removing the player from the match because they're smurfing and they're destroying these players, the new players. They get in there and they track and they're like, hey, this guy, he's actually a really good player. Let's just boot him from the lobby. Like, this guy's obviously trying to smurf or do what else. We're just going to boot him. So that seems to be the solution. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of mistakes that happen there where, it's not necessarily even a great player. It's just maybe a new player has a good game and all of a sudden they get booted because the system, like misrepresents what a good player is, and, and it makes a mistake or whatever. But it's interesting, though, that they say they're planning to incorporate bot pools for this. So apparently there's going to be bots, like actual real-life bots. Like, everybody says, like, oh, like all these bad players, they're bots. But no, they're actually going to have real-life computers in the game as well. So interesting. I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but apparently with the new AI, I mean, it'll work out somehow. The bots will be apparently like even somewhat skilled and be able to hold their own, I guess, to where bot kills will still count towards, all your challenges and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's interesting. Halo Infinite has it a very interesting way where if, a real life player leaves a match, then it can replace that player with a bot in the meantime. So it can kind of help out your team. If your teammates leave, now you have bots instead of just, being solo. The bots aren't great. They actually increased the difficulty, increased like the AI on the bots a little while ago, and that helped. But even still in Halo Infinite, it's like the bots are still pretty bad. It's not hard to kill bots in that game. But I don't know. It's a fine line, though. That's the thing, though. These developers, they have to tread this fine line because you can't have the bots be super powerful and basically dominate the lobbies, because then the enemy team is going to get smashed because now there's all these bots, and then there's maybe even a dynamic there where it's like, hey, you want your teammates to leave because the bots are actually going to be better than your teammates. Or, you also don't want the bots to be too bad, because then it's like, oh, well then I'd rather just not have a bot at all, because then the enemy team can farm these bots and get all their kill streaks and stuff. So it's a fine line there. But I don't know, there's a lot of discussion here, and I don't know, it's very interesting to see that they'll be changing it up with this game. But I think that just the most important takeaway for this entire thing is just that lower skill players are going to be protected, potentially with even outright removing good players from the lobbies and from the matches too. Just being like, hey, yep, you're too good, you're done. But then also still not penalizing better players. And for me, I'm like, that's what I care about. I don't care about getting into these Smurf lobbies and dropping, 6,000 kills in a single game and, and getting all these crazy streaks and nukes and stuff like that. I don't care about that. I just want to get into a game where I'm not playing with absolute potatoes and I don't have to sweat my balls off. That's all I care about. I just want to, come home from work, play some video games, have a casual time, and just, do whatever. I don't want to have to sweat my balls off. But, I mean, that sounds like that's what's going to be happening. They're going to be splitting it up that way to, not penalize good players, but also protect the lower skill players as well. So, very interesting. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this in the comments down below. What do you guys take about this new system, as well as, the previous system, skill-based matchmaking within Call of Duty? Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.